A wedge in politics is a tactic to divide your opponents and force voters to side with you on an issue. There was another classic case this week with Prime Minister Julia Gillard's risky promise of $2.1 billion in Commonwealth money for the Epping to Parramatta rail link. This missing link in the metropolitan heavy rail network had been axed by former Treasurer Michael Costa 7 years ago. But with the federal election in full swing and Western Sydney voters deeply alienated from state Labor, the PM and the Premier pulled this rabbit out of the hat. While the credibility of the commitment is suspect, Commonwealth money wouldn't flow until 2014, it was not a high priority with the national agency Infrastructure Australia, the joint announcement immediately put the wedge into the coalition, federal and state. Western Sydney voters are demanding public transport investment. Does the coalition, federal and state, reject $2 billion public transport dollars, however politically motivated the commitment may be?
We will construct the Parramatta to Epping rail link. This is a substantial project. It's $2.6 billion. The federal government will contribute 80% and the New South Wales government will contribute 20%. The New South Wales government's investment will flow first, and what that means is that work and preparation can start in 2011.
With this investment, we are able to bring forward the Parramatta to Epping rail link. With this investment from the Commonwealth, we can bring forward a project we identified in our Metropolitan Transport Plan as a priority should further federal funding become available. Today, we see working in partnership between the New South Wales Government and the federal Labor Government. That investment made, this project coming forward, that's a great win for families in Western Sydney. So thank you, Prime Minister.
Thank
Absolutely.
you. Thank you very much.
And here comes the wedge.
Obviously, I'll be relying on Premier Keneally, and she is all for this project. I presume the opposition leader in New South Wales can speak for himself. But what I can say about my counterpart, Mr Abbott, is the Gillard government will get this done, working with the New South Wales government. Today, Tony Abbott, as the alternate Prime Minister, putting himself forward for consideration on the 21st of August, has not backed construction of this project. So if people in Sydney want to see the rail link constructed between Parramatta and Epping, then the way to do it is to have the Gillard government re-elected, and then we'll work in the spirit of partnership with the Premier's government here in New South Wales.
Alternative Prime Minister Tony Abbott has not and will not match the Gillard funding commitment for the Parramatta to Epping rail link.
The federal Labor government has caught the New South Wales Labor government's disease of making big announcements which are almost certainly never going to be delivered upon because they don't form part of a coherent plan. And that is the New South Wales Labor pattern: big announcements before an election, a big failure to deliver after an election, big promises before an election, broken promises after an election. The New South Wales State Labor government is all spin and no action, and unfortunately the disease seems to have contaminated federal Labor under Julia Gillard, who, let's face it, owes her place as Prime Minister to the same New South Wales Labor power brokers who are responsible for that government's appalling performance.
The state opposition has produced recent correspondence from Transport Minister John Robertson to prove that Parramatta to Epping was not a priority. Federal Infrastructure Minister Anthony Albanese had some tap dancing to do about the decision-making processes of the allegedly independent agency IA, Infrastructure Australia.
Do we have a date, though, as to when you did receive the submission to IA? Was it in the last 3 weeks?
We have been having ongoing discussions with the state government over a long period of time, and indeed so have Infrastructure Australia, about these projects. What isn't always understood in the media is that Infrastructure Australia does not have a series of tranches. There is an ongoing process of dialogue between Infrastructure Australia and the state and territory governments. It's an independent authority, and certainly I've had direct discussions about this project, not just with the Infrastructure Australia executive, but also with Sir Rod Eddington, the chair.
While Parramatta to Epping has been considered a low priority by both the state Labor and coalition parties, its elevation to the highest priority through the federal election campaign now threatens to derail the transport reform plans of the alternative state government. What say Julia Gillard wins federally? If there is a change of state government next March, Gladys Berejiklian would become this state's next Transport Minister.
Today, the Labor Party's hypocrisy has been highlighted both at federal level and at state level.
Here's how Ms Berejiklian handled the Gillard-Keneally wedge.
We have to remember only 12 months ago they were planning to build the CBD Rozelle Metro at a cost of $5 billion. They didn't care about the missing transport links in our network. They just cared about putting $5-6 billion in the CBD Rozelle Metro. They didn't care about this project. They didn't care about the North West Rail Link, the South West Rail Link. We've already made a number of transport priorities in New South Wales, the North West Rail Link, the South West Rail Link. We'll continue to look at projects that are worthwhile and we think should be the state's priorities. But we're not going to work to Julia Gillard's timetable or anybody else's timetable. We're going to do what's in the best interest of the people of New South Wales. We won't be making last-minute announcements or middle announcements in the campaign for things that we haven't costed and we haven't planned for.
We'll see on August the 21st if the Gillard-Keneally tactic works in clawing back Labor support in Western Sydney. It was a big and unexpected commitment, but the political risk for the Prime Minister is that she has aligned herself with a state party which, judging by recent by-elections, has lost up to 20% of Labor's traditional Western Sydney primary vote.